Well, hello, BTF.
I do.
Welcome, and this should be an engaging conversation here in the panel. We have Lee from Uber, David, Colin, and Amy. So, would you like to introduce yourselves briefly?
Yes, thanks, Lizette. My name is Lee Rudolph. I'm Vice President of Quality and Productivity Engineering at Uber Technologies, based in Amsterdam. And I look at after a variety of technologies within our platform engineering function.
Hi, everybody. I'm Colin. I'm the CTO for BT Business. I'm responsible for the product design, the design of our networks, our customer networks design, and our international networks.
Hey everybody, my name is Amy Harms. I'm head of observability and site reliability at Goldman Sachs, making sure that the bank is resilient, reliable, and observable.
Right. Hi everybody, I'm David Knott. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for the UK Government. I work in a team called the Government Digital Service where we try to do three things: build and run citizen-facing services at scale, things like gov.uk and things like that. Lead the 100,000 digital and data professionals across the public sector, and to set strategy and standards for everybody to build reliable, scalable services.
Thank you. So, today our panelists will share how they've built platforms not just for growth, but to strive in throughout the process. We will explore resiliency, manage technical debt, make bold decisions that keep products agile and reliable, future-proof. So this first question is for all of you. At BTF, we talk about the collision between culture and tech. In one sentence, how does scaling your system reflects not just the performance, but the value of your organization? Who wants to go first?
Yeah, I'll take that one to go first. Great question. So at Uber, we have a cultural value that we call build with heart. And that's not an emotional call to action. It's really about being empathetic and thoughtful, not just of the stakeholders that you serve, but also the communities in which you operate. At Uber, for example, we're one of the largest global platforms for earners, and so millions of people depend on Uber for their livelihood. And beyond just the couriers or the drivers you may think about, there are also thousands, hundreds of thousands of restaurants, merchants, retailers that depend on Uber as well for sales and distribution opportunities. And so we really try to channel building with heart, which means keep all of your constituents at top of mind when you're thinking about technology decisions.
Shall I go next?
Yes, go for it.
Well, just to make it make it a little real, what we build in BT, we are incredibly aware of the responsibility of the souls and the lives that we're protecting every day. You know, we have 33 million people connected to our network in the UK, about 260 million devices connected to the network. We're connecting about 240,000 kilometers of fiber connecting. And probably 95% of the FTSE market run their daily operational processes on there. But those aren't the numbers that are really important. It's more like the 33 million calls we serve for the ambulance, for the fire, for the police to protect. It's more about the national air traffic control that we have to keep running. So the responsibility of having availability platforms to be safe, secure, trusted, knowing that there's no plan B without the network, without the technology anymore. You know, the banks, the NHS, running the hospitals, the DHL who's ferrying the insulin to the systems down there, all of those rely on the network. All of it relies on resilient communications. And we feel that responsibility and feel that pressure when we're designing things for the future. So the culture we have is one that is humble but feeling great responsibility for the souls that are in the air, that are traveling on the trains, and protecting the nation.
Thank you. That's a big responsibility. Amy?
Sure. I'm going to answer this question a little differently, because I think as engineers, one of the things that's important to remember is Conway's Law. For those of you who don't know, Melvin Conway wrote that law in 1967, and I think everyone up here would agree it still holds true today. It basically says that an organization is constrained in its designs and what it can produce in its systems by how well the people inside the organization communicate. So I think that's a really important factor in terms of thinking about how you scale, whether it's for government or for national infrastructure or earners platforms or major global investment banks, etc. You have to be able to think about how are the designs that we're producing reflecting the communications that we have inside, so that we know that the right people are having the right conversations about the right designs and specifications, so we're shipping the right thing.
Thank you, Amy. David?
Yeah, so I'll keep my response really simple. A government digital service, we have a principle that we're here to build for everyone. So scale for us means the ability to run platforms that everybody in the country can use, but it also means the responsibility to make sure that they are delivered in a way that everybody can use. So we have an incredibly strong commitment to accessibility, usability. We have probably I'd say the strongest user research team I've seen in any organisation I've ever worked for. If you go to gov.uk as a series of websites, you may look at that and think, has this really got loads of user research and user designers? Because it looks incredibly plain. There's a reason for that. It looks incredibly plain because that is what everybody can access and makes the information we're presenting to people and the services they access accessible to the maximum number of people in the country.
Thank you so much. So let's talk a little bit about architecture and resiliency. Colin, this is for you. Telecoms touches nearly everyone in society. How do you design systems to be resilient, not just for premium users, but for all? This includes underserved and marginalized communities.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I'm going to answer that in a couple of layers. First of all, when we think about building platforms, you want to build it so that it is a unit economic that everybody can benefit from the resilience, so that when you bring new innovation, and I think I'm afraid I'm the first one who's going to break the AI rule. I think I'm the first one on the stage mentioning AI. When you've got things like AI coming into this, you want to make sure that you're not just protecting the privileged, you're protecting everyone.
Right. And
you've got to build it so that it is equality for all, that you have a platform that you can serve as much as a wider group of communities as well. But when you're building products also from a safety and a trust perspective, when we're reimagining, we're in the process of switching from PSTN, because we use 1% of the UK's power right now with the phone lines, keeping everything turned on, because it's a separate power system. And that's running its course, and we'll be moving to fully digital. And as our new products come, we want to make sure that in there for free, for vulnerable people, there's safety for scam calls. And putting AI in there for scam guards, so that people who are vulnerable or disadvantaged, they get the benefits, and that they are protected, and that we're a good citizen, and we're part of the community. So I think it's really important for us to lean in and think that that it's by design. It's not an afterthought. It's not a marketing thing. That the engineers who are thinking about this consciously at the beginning of the design process, that it is open, accessible, and thinking about everyone, and bringing the best that you're leveling and doing things like that. And it's it's a really great time to be doing it as well because, let's face it, BT's like 180 years old this year.
Wow.
So we're like the oldest telco in the world. I don't know if anybody knew that.
Wow.
But we're trying to think like a startup, though. And that's very hard, right? Because you have really big scale. And we're not greenfield, let's just say that. And trying to reinvent and think forward, but think enlightened, think about a future that is good for everyone is a really great challenge while you're trying to change the engine on the jumbo jet while it's flying at the same time.
Wow, that's scaling at very high scale. So we know scaling is technical, but it's also constrained by legacy systems and policy. So David, thinking about legacy and public sector constraints, government digital services must serve everyone, and often legacy-laden environments. How do you modernize and scale and preserve the continuity and equity of access and inclusion?
Yes, it's difficult. It's probably one of the most difficult challenges we face. We did some analysis last year to just try and figure out how much legacy stuff we have in our estate across government, which is very difficult to figure out because you think our government estate includes everything that sits in central government departments, schools, hospitals, police forces, everywhere. I can't give you a precise number, but the answer was a lot. Also, when we define things as legacy, we actually mean stuff that's quite bad. So stuff that's we can't patch anymore, is out of support, etc. So the first problem is figuring out the technical path to get to something new. There's a feature of moving from legacy systems to new systems that is often forgotten that we try to bear in mind. So there's the obvious thing, which is to put loads of effort into making sure the new systems you build are accessible and usable and that as maximum number of people can get access to them. What people often forget is the migration. So often it's not the building the new system that is difficult, it's the migration of the old systems. And it's very easy to go wrong in that migration and to end up in ways where you inadvertently harm people because you don't bring the data across properly. So what we're trying to do is to put a really strong focus in that kind of shift and make sure we're paying as much attention to the path to the end state as we are to the new end state itself.
Wow, thank you. So scaling quickly often create technical debt. So when we think about technical debt, Amy, in financial systems, failure can have serious consequences. How do you control the debt while still delivering rapid innovation and adapting to new risk?
The simple answer is you implement site reliability engineering. And by that, what we mean is you implement a discipline of software engineering that allows you to have a control valve over features, velocity, throughput, how quickly you're going to market with new services and offerings, and how quickly you can respond to change, respond to outages, incidents, and manage the health of the service. So that's kind of SRE in a nutshell, and fundamental to being able to make that decision about whether or not you turn the dial and stop shipping so that you can make the service healthier or more reliable is whether or not that service is observable. So if you've got a lot of technical debt and you're having a lot of outages, you're going to have to slow down how quickly you ship. And the only way that you can know if you've hit that tipping point is if your systems are observable. So you've got to be making sure that you have service-oriented monitoring, that you have strong SLOs, that those SLOs are meeting their targets, and that engineers and engineering leaders know when fast is too fast and when it's time to start paying attention to burning down your technical debt.
Wow, that's interesting. So when we think about debt connects to observability and trust, right, Amy? Good observability is more than just metrics, right? It's about visibility, accountability, and trust. Can you share a case where observability exposes deeper systematic issues and how you respond to it?
Yeah, I think there's not really one specific example I can give you, but I can say that Goldman Sachs has been on a journey to implement service level objectives, or SLOs, across our estate for several years now. And what that means is when engineers put new services into production, when parts of our business launch new financial offerings to the market, we've got the monitoring in place to understand what happens to a customer or a transaction or that financial activity as it moves through our software technology stack. And we keep track of those SLOs. We know if our SLOs are green or red, if they're hitting their targets. And again, back to that point about that steam valve, that balance. Every day engineers make decisions of, okay, our SLO is not meeting targets. Our trend for the last 30 days is not where we need it to be. We're going to take this sprint and work on some technical debt, or we're going to take next sprint and do a new feature that's going to allow us to retire a feature that's not performing well. So it's really, really important not just to have a dashboard that tells you when something is in trouble, but to be able to have that 30-day look back on how reliable am I trending over time. Is now the time to make some changes.
Awesome. So we know tech systems are only as strong as the people behind them, right? At least we would like to think so. If we start thinking about organization, design, and culture, David, this is for you. Scale in public services means aligning many stakeholders, including the underrepresented communities and local government. How do you structure your team and pipelines to remain inclusive and representative and responsive?
Yeah, so what we try to do, and I can't claim we're always successful at this, to us, it's not rocket science. I think it's what we've known to be good practice for some years and tries to follow Conway's law, is that we believe really strongly that the smallest size product teams who fully own the end-to-end product have a stake in the services we deliver to end users, the quality of the product, the forward pipeline. They're the same people who get called out of bed at 3 o'clock in the morning when it goes wrong. That multidisciplinary team with, again, our core value around user research and user needs, very strong user research capability in it, is the best way of delivering. And it's also the unit of scale. We don't think you scale those teams by making them bigger. We believe you scale them by having thoughtful product boundaries and having more and more of those product teams running on platforms also delivered as products that give them the technical platforms to scale. That's the ideal. I think, as people are probably aware, government is not always ideal. So I'd say as well as having a strong legacy of technology, we also have a long legacy of technology practices and organisational practices. I think actually if you look around the world, particularly in the UK and the US, a lot of what we think of as old heavyweight systems delivery methods came out of government and out of defence. And I think we've now learned they're not great ways of delivering things, but there's still a tendency, if you're running a multi-billion pound government project, organise it like a giant programme with giant teams and lots of separations of concerns, lots of organisational constructs that then end up getting reflected in the architecture, is not the best way to do it. So part of our job in the centre is to continuously remind people we know how to do this well. Small product teams that are scaled horizontally is the best way to deliver software. Let's keep doing that and keep reminding people that's the best way to do it.
Awesome. So Colin, BT works with businesses and public services from very different scale. What cultural practices help align large, diverse engineering teams, especially across geographic and identities?
Great question. I'm going to answer two different cultural.
Sure.
There's developmental culture and also culture. So, first of all, having a team that represents the languages and the cultures, the ethnicity, religion, and lived experience of our customers makes our products richer, makes our ability to hit the mark of something that people want to buy, use, trust, and thrive with is very important. I didn't mention before, but BT has an international arm in 180 countries, and I have people in the different regions who are from those regions who speak the local language, are part of the local culture, and represent insights. And one of the fascinating things about that is, around the globe, innovation is going at different paces. And there is no central factory of innovation in one place. I find that we're far richer if we're collecting, like pollinating from different regions, from different cultures, who are ahead of us. We're not number one in everything. In fact, we're not necessarily number one in many things. And there are other regions that are that you can learn from and bring in and accelerate what you're doing. And it makes it far more richer. Now, the other culture is around DevOps. And I'll just put a little geeky one in there, is we're trying to be a digital company. You know, everybody's probably trying to be a digital company, but we're still very infrastructure heavy. You know,
Right.
we have ducts and physical lines in the ground and power and big generators and buildings all around the country and around the world. And there's a lot of physicality to it. So we've been going through a bit of a cultural side of that as well, where you're introducing agile, DevOps techniques, but you're an infrastructure company that necessarily still has waterfall-based techniques. So we're kind of, you know, a wagile world or something like that. I'll make that word up on the fly or something like that, where you're having to blend development cultures, because it's not easy. There's nothing off the shelf will do when you're in this hybrid situation, and we're still on a learning journey, trying to create our own wagile way of working.
Wow, that's unique. I like that. So, looking forward to future scaling challenges, Lee. If you were to look ahead 5 years, what is the scaling challenge you're prepared for, especially in terms of social impact, regulations, and inclusion?
5 years is a very, very long time, particularly in the environment that we operate in, which is very nimble. Things change very, very quickly. But if I had to anticipate what the future would hold, as was mentioned, obviously Gen AI is going to be a large part of any future that anyone would imagine 5 years from now. And so I try to think about not just application of Gen AI for the products that we offer or within the platforms that we build, but what are the implications of Gen AI on the products and the platforms we have. So for example, one of my areas I look after is our developer experience, our developer productivity solutions, as well as our observability and reliability platforms. I try to imagine an environment that is maybe agentic first versus individual developer centric, which everything we've built to date has been built around the expected scale and normative behavior of the individual, but that's likely to change over the next few years. And then, now what does that mean from a cultural and stakeholder perspective? How are we also thinking about creating opportunities that everyone can benefit in that environment that we anticipate to happen 5 years in the future? So again, 5 years is a long time, but if I were to guess, I would think that it would be heavily influenced by AI. You see the investment that's happening all around the globe right now at just mind-boggling levels. So that gives some pretty good insight. And we should think about how does that change the fundamental assumptions that we might make if we just sort of linearly extrapolate it from where we've been into the future.
Wow, to me the future looks very, very bright from what you're saying. Look, well, thank you all. I have one last question before we wrap. What what's one myth about scaling you would like to bust for our audience, particularly in tech? Who wants to go first?
Maybe we'll just go down the line here. I think that sometimes we can make kind of what I call a Sophie's Choice decision. Sophie's Choice was an American movie from years ago where someone had to make the least worst option decision. And I think sometimes we think we have to trade off quality and reliability and velocity. But I think really, if we think about quality and speed together, that could give business and offer business velocity. And I think that we don't always have to trade the two off. You can move fast but thoughtfully and recognize that you may still have to make some changes down the road, and that's okay. Just expect it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think scaling, one of the myths, I'd love to say that we have a plan for everything, but we don't. Sometimes we have to react. And I'll give you an example. Sometimes you have to make a bet on the best information that you have, and you'd have to take a leap of faith. But sometimes things will just happen. And AI is a good example. We still don't know the implications of AI to the network. But I give you an example. These glasses, probably if we were to meet again in 5 years' time, all of us would have some sort of personal device that is, if you think about AI as the new UI, that this device is streaming your life, like the Truman Show, up to your AI assistant that is learning your context and is feeding a token to this device so it's ready for you to anticipate, like predictive text. But the problem for me is that turns a network that was essentially blow to suck. So it's asymmetric flows. And it completely blows up the network in terms of what the traffic flows are on the network. And it's little things like that that are sort of the butterfly effect of dramatic innovation, where AI didn't get launched into the network, it escaped. And we still are on this exciting journey on how to react. So sometimes you have to just go with the flow and react and do your best and take a leap of faith with the best minds around you and just go for it.
Thank you. Amy?
I think one of the myths about scaling is that you can plan for it and have it all sorted out in your technology stack before you launch. I've been bitten many times in my career by scaling problems as soon as we hit our first highest peak of transactions per second ever. So don't forget, transactional scaling is often after you've had your first big cycle.
Thank you. And David?
I'm going to add something which may complement and may contradict what Amy said. So this is probably for the startup founders, people out there. I think you can't wait to figure out scaling at the point you need to scale. The point you need to scale is too late already. So you need to start, you can't anticipate everything.
100%.
Yeah, you can't anticipate everything, but you have to anticipate some things. You can't inspect reliability and security and things in later on. You've got to build it in from the outset.
Thank you. Well, to close, I just want to say a huge thank you to Lee, Colin, Amy, and David. I know that you guys have shared your battle-tested insights, and thank you for that. Scaling isn't just about tech, it's about bold move, resilient systems, and purpose-driven leadership. Today's strategy weren't just about survival, they were about thriving. So thank you for everything that you've shared with this lovely audience.
Thanks, Lizette.
Thank you, everybody.